Yo, this your boy PoeMoe, Godspeed TV, back at you live. I've been going through a little tower moment of soul transformation period, you know what I'm saying? But, we keep the show rolling. And tonight we're going to talk about Dark Night of the Soul. And, brief synopsis is when you go to the lowest point of your life, and you're going through something, and then it appear to be very detrimental, But we're gonna brief that up. Dark Night of the Soul, and then we also gonna get into black magic, psychic attacks, entities interference, and shadow projections. So yeah, we're gonna talk about that tonight. For those y'all don't know, sign up for hoodass.com. Welcome to Godspeed TV, SSL Music, SFL Music, Native Minds with a Z. No Shoe Entertainment. There we go. Let's start. I'm going to start right here. At some point in your life, you will experience the dark night of the soul when it seems that everything that can go wrong will go wrong. What many people don't realize is that this is a true blessing. The dark night of the soul occurs when your life seems to hit rock bottom. You can experience a great deal of bad luck in your personal life, financially, mentally, or physically. What usually happens during the dark night of the soul moment is that we are so hit by all these experiences that we end up reflecting on, why is this happening to me? Basically, in a nutshell, like I say, it's like shards in your body. And everything you go through in life is like friction, bumping your body. And each time you get bumped or the friction, the shards move around. And then when you get hit by what we call the Smith package in hoodass.com, when they hit you with 3 or 4 problems at one time, the impact of that hitting you and your resistance to it causes a spark with the shards. And the shards cause a spark, which is the fire or phoenix. And it ignites. And sometimes when it don't really penetrate or it's not hitting the soul, it's just a little spark. But when it catch a fire, a real fire, and then melt back down, the shards turn into a solid foundation. So now you got a solid block inside you. So when things, life, external forces bump you, it's not shaking you up. You're solid. You know what I'm saying? Let me give you an example.
I started selling drugs when I was 10, but it wasn't really selling drugs. I was just carrying drugs for the landlord of the house that we were staying in temporarily. It was like a favor. And since I knew it was temporarily and I knew the situation that we had going, where we were in situations we didn't have hot water, we didn't have lights, we didn't have gas, I was happy that he was letting us stay there, And I thought, how could I make this last longer? And I thought it would be by introducing myself to his business. He had a grocery store on Fulton Street, Brooklyn, and he sold cocaine out of it.
At first, you may feel hatred towards those who have contributed to your dark night of the soul. You may question the Creator and feel that your spirit guides or guardian angels have failed you. This could not be further from the truth. Over time, you will realize that you needed the experience. Over time, you will realize that you needed to experience everything that happened in order for you to grow spiritually. Over time, you may end up surrendering yourself and your ego to what the universe has for you, as if everything is now in the hands of the Creator. I give it up to God. This is where all the cleanups begin.
And my job was really to clean the cans and clean the store, have everything presentable. But I used to see that they were sending these little tin foils out cashier. And I started to get curious. I figured what it was. And when they were unable to do it themselves, the owner or his mother or his brother, because they were busy in the back or upstairs, they had an apartment upstairs. It was a commercial use building. I decided to sell some of them to the people that would come in that I knew would come in prior.
There is no painless awareness. People would do anything, no matter how absurd, to avoid facing their own soul. One does not become enlightening by imagining figures of light, but by making darkness aware.
And that's initially how I started selling drugs. And I was just trying to figure a way to make more money so we could stay in the apartment that basically was being lent to us. But that introduction led me into a whole lifestyle that I'm still paying for today. And, you know,
a contract of his soul, guides, and guardian angels. Before incarnating here, not reincarnating, but incarnating here, he made a contract of the soul involving everyone who led him to his dark night soul, or everyone who led him to his dark night of the soul. When you are on the other side of the veil, you specifically choose these people to help you grow spiritually. Some of these people may also have had previous karmic relationships with you that both of you need to try to work out in this incarnation. Your spirit guides and guardian angels are with you every second of your life. When you feel pain and sadness, so do they.
I'm paying for it in different ways, mostly psychologically at this point, because some things you can't get out your head. It's not always about making money. You don't always make money in any business. A lot of people fail to realize that, but that's what it is. So by taking those steps and selling and pushing that aluminum foil out to cash register, it took me into carrying drugs and then selling drugs and then accepting that as a way of lifestyle in order to never be as poor as we were. The time came when he kicked us out of there. He kicked us out of there. We didn't have money to pay him. We went through a cycle of, you move from this address to that address. Welfare has to then reestablish a new address. And before they start sending money for rent, it's a sort of a bureaucracy.
Letting go of our image of God can be scary. It is often a result of an experience of suffering in our lives, when our previous understanding is no longer sufficient to make sense of what is happening to us. Many people offer hiker's words or superficial comfort to my pain. They weren't willing to sit with me in the dark, but just hope to rush me into the place of light. This is the metaphysical. This is the mystical experience of the dark night of the soul. When old convictions and conformities dissolve into nothingness, we are called to remain naked in the terror of the unknown. We must let the process move through us, one that is far greater than we can comprehend. So when things get too hard, go in. When things get too rough, just let go. Don't think about it. Be. We cannot force our way back into the light. It is only in this place of absolute surrender that the new possibility can arise. Cut off the old and put on the new. You know what I'm saying? Like Flightball say, cut off that old head and create a new, you know what I'm saying? New mind, new strength, new structure, new cell, new golem, a new imagination, a new being. And what happened to me in the short spell, let me read this real quick. Okay. We not only have a dark night in our lives, but over and over again, as we are called to keep releasing the image that we hold on so tightly. So, like I said, over and over again, you're going through the dark night of the soul moment, right? Shit happening, everything in your life go wrong, or whatever you want to call it, with pressure, life hits you, you know what I'm saying? You go in and you let go, And what happened is, after getting hit so many times, you start redirecting your mind. You start redirecting your thought patterns. You start saying, okay, have everything I did in the past work? Have everything I tried in the past added up to this? So what did you do in the past? You know what I'm saying? Then you get to a point where you like, fuck it. Well, we gonna keep going.
But when you're in that situation, as far as being homeless or at the edge of it, you learn different survival skills. So we made the best out of it. In doing so, though, we were exposed to different places at different times, and now I knew about cocaine. So everywhere I went, I tried to see how I was going to make money. Tell my mother, you grow up fast though in that business, and so at some point it stopped being about selling drugs, and it became you also got to kill people.
The true blessing of the dark night of the soul is the spiritual cleansing that one receives. When you have reached the dark night of the soul, you have reached your lowest point in this incarnation. So say congratulations. Once you step out on the other side of the dark night of the soul, the initiation come out as a God in man, rebirth, reborn as a phoenix. You would gain a new perspective and appreciation of what had happened. And these experiences will exponentially expand your spiritual progress. So, like my man say, when the flow comes, the negative energy waves flow, this warring, tactical, what you call debating, I am the best energy come, you either get sucked up in it and you find yourself cracking trades, acting like crazy, and that's a feminine trait, because in order to crack trades and gang bang, you got to say I'm the best, and then whatever the else, religion, gang, psychology, whatever else you in is not the best. So, that's like, how that go. Typically, many people experience ego loss for the first time in their life during the dark night of the soul. This can be a very humbling experience.
Because they're trying to kill you, or they're going to take away the one thing that you got that you're trying to save your family with. And shootings started, and murders started happening. Before you know it, daily life consisted as a teenager of carrying at least one gun. At 18, carrying a gun and a bulletproof vest. Things were escalating where you have to do more and more to try to stay alive. A bigger gun, more bullets, extra clips, blah, blah, blah. So the years that I'm discussing with you as far as being homeless as a child were all of the 80s, up until some of the 70s and all up into the 80s, up until 88, which is when I established with my business partner, Ditong, Yellow Top.
Answer, I am Ra. It is to be noted that in discussing those who are well known among your peoples, there is the possibility that information may be seen to be specific to one entity, whereas in actuality the great design of experience is much the same for each entity. It is with this in mind that we would discuss the experiential forces which offered catalyst to an individual.
And we started selling crack cocaine on 107th Street in Columbus Avenue, Manhattan, New York City. And before you know it, bodies just dropping, and shootings are occurring, and lawyers are being introduced into our lives. But we were growing in the business, so we pretty much were engulfed by that and accepted that as a way of doing business. Everything that was happening was justified as a way of business.
It is further to be noted that in the case of those entities lately incarnate, much distortion may have taken place in regard to misinformation and misinterpretation of an entity's thoughts or behaviors. We shall now proceed to, shall we say, speak of the basic parameters of the one known as Franklin. When any entity comes into third density incarnation, each of its energy centers is potentiated but must be activated by the self-using experience.
And we went from selling just when we started the business, $500 worth of crack. All night we stood out there, and then we would go to school in the morning. And then it became where every day was 1,000 vials of crack they were selling.
We usually associate a title or our achievements with who we are, but we don't see that ultimately we are spiritual beings having a human experience. When we lose our ego, we can finally connect with our spiritual essence, because we no longer associate ourselves with society's golems, preconceived idea, or our preconceived notion of who we are. The dark night of the soul gives us a new sense of appreciation for all that is good in life and shows us how little we really need to be happy. But the most important aspect gained through the dark night of the soul is the connection we receive through our transformation of the conscious. It's like being given a new lease on life. You stop blaming other people. You start looking inwards for answers. Forgiving and gratitudes are learned. You realize that you need to have these experiences in order to be guided in a new direction that faculties in your spiritual growth and purpose. It is precisely because we resist the dark night or the darkness in ourselves that we miss out on the deepest of beauty, brilliance, creativity, joy, and that lies in our core.
And fast forwarding that, at our highest peak, we would sell 30,000 units, 30,000 cracks a day, deuces or trades, $2 bottles or $3 bottles. And some of the surveillance footage that the cops, well, not really the cops, because we never had problems with blue and white cops. They never was a threat to us. But the task force that did arrest us, HIU, homicide investigative unit. They compile surveillance footage of us, and you see, 300 people online.
The one known as Franklin developed very quickly up through red, orange, yellow, and green and began to work in the Blu-ray Energy Center at a tender age, as you would say. This rapid growth was due, firstly, to previous achievements in the activation of the rays, secondly, to the relative comfort and leisure of its early existence, thirdly, due to the strong desire upon the part of the entity to progress. This entity mated with an entity whose Blu-ray vibrations were of a strength more than equal to its own, thus acquiring catalyst for further growth in that area that was to persist throughout the incarnation.
If you are currently experiencing dark night of the soul, I can assure you that there are more happy days and fulfilling days ahead. At some point, you must put your faith in the hands of the Creator and know that you are always being divinely guided towards your life purpose or intent or purpose. Look at where you are. Okay. Look at where your life has taken you and what direction you are being shown to take. Try to forgive those who have led you to the dark night of the soul and forgive yourself. Don't try to force immediate changes because they will come to you when you are ready. Sometimes during the dark night of the soul, it is best to do nothing and simply live in the now.
This entity had some difficulty with continued green ray activity due to the excessive energy which was put into the activities regarding other selves in the distortion towards acquiring power. This was to have its toll upon the physical vehicle, as you may call it. The limitation of the non-movement of a portion of the physical vehicle opened once again, for this entity, the opportunity for concentration upon a more, shall we say, universal or idealistic aspects of power, that is, the non-abusive use of power. Thus, at the outset of a bellicose action, this entity had lost some positive polarity due to excessive use of the orange and yellow ray energies at the expense of green and blue ray energies, then had regained the polarity due to the catalytic effects of a painful limitation upon the physical complex.
Waiting to purchase crack cocaine, and we had guys on the corner with a walkie-talkie or with a headset, and the guy in the middle of the block, and then the cops for years couldn't arrest nobody. Not one YTC member, because the YTC operation consisted of an abandoned building that is completely sealed except for a brick in the wall. It looks like one brick, but obviously there's layers of bricks that I removed when I got into that building in order for us to have an operation from the inside of the building. So literally, you can stick your hand up to your forearm if you're buying crack, but you never know who you're buying it from.
Although it may not seem like it, the people who have led you to this point are most likely part of your soul group. On the other side of the veil, they love you so much that they volunteered to take you into the dark night of the soul. If you ever got to the point where you are deviating from your life purpose, even if it meant you are no longer, it would be part of this life in this incarnation. The best way to see the dark night of the soul is to compare it to a butterfly. Before your dark night, you were slow caterpillar. You was a slow caterpillar that was limited to a small area due to lack of your mobility. You didn't realize how much more you were capable of until you turned your cocoon. Once he emerged from his cocoon, he transformed himself into a beautiful butterfly whose limits were limitless. In this analogy, the cocoon is where you do nothing except go inside. You are on the brink of spiritual transformation. So put your ego aside, renounce the universe, and you will soon be spreading your wings like light.
This entity was not of a bellicose nature, but rather during the conflict continued to vibrate in green ray, working with the blue ray energies. The entity who was the one known as Franklin's teacher also functioned greatly during this period as blue ray activator, not only for its mate but also in a more universal expression. This entity polarized continuously in a positive fashion in the universal sense, while, in a less universal sense, developing a pattern of what may be called karma. This karma having to do with inharmonious relationship distortions with the mate teacher.
Purpose of all, let's demystify this because all black people is Prince Hall Masons, 99.999% of them don't know their ass from a hole in the ground. It ain't got nothing to do with no ancient mystical mystery system. And if you got a brother in there that's tied this stuff in it because he didn't do some additional studying on his own. But my granddaddy was a damn Prince Hall and he got that shit in one day and he couldn't even read. Half of niggas couldn't even read with the turn of the damn century, but all of us they started that. That's a social order. Drinking liquor and driving cab. That got nothing to do with the ancient mystery system whatsoever. Most black Masonic organizations, as far as the what you call it all. And if there is somebody that's dealing with some stuff, that means they made it a point to deal with this stuff by an additional study. But as far as the black Masons that you see, they don't have no secrets.
Question 35.2. Questioner, two things I would like to clear up. First, then Franklin's teacher was his wife. Is this correct? Answer, I am Ra. This is correct. Question 35.3. Questioner, secondly, did Franklin place the physical limitation on his body himself? Answer, I am Ra. This is partially correct. The basic guidelines for the lessons and purposes of incarnation had been carefully set forth before incarnation by the mind, body, spirit complex totality. If the one known as Franklin had avoided the excessive enjoyment of or attachment to the competitiveness which may be seen to be inherent in the processes of its occupation, this entity would not have had the limitation.
And that operation lasted for 5 years like that, continuing to grow and grow and grow until our arrest, when it was alleged that we were making $5 million a year. And by then, we were charged with 10 homicides, 14 attempted murders, paying off the police, and a number of other crimes, including, weapon possessions, a ton of guns, grenades, silencers, pipe bombs, everything that you could think about that destroys life. We had a lot of it.
However, the desire to serve and to grow was strong in this programming, and when the opportunities began to cease due to these distortions towards love of power, the entity's limiting factor was activated. Question 35.4. Questioner, I would now like to ask for the same type of information with respect to Adolf Hitler. You have given a little of this already. It is not necessary for you to recover what you have already given. Could you complete that information? Answer, I am Ra. In speaking of the one you call Adolf, we have some difficulty due to the intense amount of confusion present in this entity's life patterns, as well as the great confusion which greets any discussion of this entity.
Any way responsible on your end for putting them in that situation, or are you just solving a problem?
Well, this is not my problem. It's not my mind frame. It's their mind frame. It's something that they're going to do with whether I do this or that, whether anyone does this or that, whether it be the cops, whether it be a foreman, whether it be whoever it might be, whether they find it. It's their personality, it's their character, it's what's in them, it's in their DNA. It has nothing to do with what I do. It's not like, we're putting a gun to someone's face and saying, here, take this, because I'm not trying to say, take this. I'm not trying to say, here, I'm going to give you this. I'm not trying to say I'll do anything, I'm not trying to say that, come to me, and I'll help you to freedom, free your mind, that.
Here we see an example of one who, in attempting activation of the highest rays of energy while lacking the green ray key, cancelled itself out as far as polarization, either towards positive or negative. This entity was basically negative. However, its confusion was such that the personality disintegrated, thus leaving the mind, body, spirit complex unharvestable and much in need of healing.
That's a person can hold themselves in bondage, hold themselves hostage.
At a good night, you would have made what?
Doing that, probably, shit, $10,000 or something like that. Just, on a typical night, because it comes fast like that. It would be all the same.
This entity followed the pattern of negative polarization, which suggests the elite and the enslaved, this being seen by the entity to be of an helpful nature for the societal structure. However, in drifting from the conscious polarization into what you may call a twilight world where dream took the place of events in your space-time continuum, this entity failed in its attempt to serve the creator in an unharvestable degree along the path of service to self.
And what were you selling?
I sold crack.
Crack?
Yeah, I sold crack. I had what I call the best little whorehouse in Texas. You know what I mean? People would come in and they appreciate it because there would be some security if you wanted to go to the boom boom room. The boom boom room is get your fucking, you're sucking on and doing whatever it is that you feel is necessary to make you happy. Someone wanted to escape. I'm like, well, it's a great escape right here. You can come in and be part of my friendship.
Thus we see the so-called insanity which may often arise when an entity attempts to polarize more quickly than experience may be integrated. We have advised and suggested caution and patience in previous communications and do so again, using this entity as an example of the over-hasty opening of polarization without due attention to the synthesized and integrated mind, body, spirit complex. To know yourself is to have the foundation upon firm ground.
We gonna be friends.
And you had lots of regular customers, or people just know?
Yeah, man, I had this loyal dude, man. He would come in a week's time. He spent $400, man. Just $400 every week. That's like the least that he would spend. And yeah, those regular customers because they trusted me that I would protect them, that I would help them. They trusted that I would always lead them the right way. Because I never would try and convince a person to buy something that they already want to buy. If that's what they're doing, then that's what they're doing. It's on them.
Question 35.5. Questioner, thank you. That was an important example, I believe. I was wondering if any of those who were subordinate to Adolf at that time were able to polarize in the harvestable nature on the negative path. Answer, I am Ra. We can speak only of two entities who may be harvestable in a negative sense, others still being in the physical incarnation, one known to you as Haman, the other known, as it preferred to be called, Paimla. Question 35.6. Questioner, thank you. Earlier we discussed Abraham Lincoln as a rather unique case. Is it possible for you to tell us why the fourth density being used Abraham Lincoln's body, what its orientation was, and when this took place with respect to the activities that were occurring in our society at that time? Answer, I am Ra. This is possible.
You gotta grab a bull by the horns, and then again, addiction is another form of holding yourself hostage, because it's only what we create in our mind. Our mind tells us that we have to go and go do this. Our mind tells us that the only way out of it is to do this. Our mind tells us that we have to be free, and so in order to be free, I escape by going to another realm, going to a whole other matrix, so to speak.
Question 35.7. Questioner, would it be of value for the reader to know this in your estimation? Answer, I am Ra. You must shape your queries according to your discernment. Question 35.8. Questioner, well, in that case I would like to know the motivation for this use of Abraham Lincoln's body at that time. Answer, I am Ra. This shall be the last full query of this session as we find the instrument quite low in vital energies. The one known as Abraham had an extreme difficulty in many ways and, due to physical, mental, and spiritual pain, was weary of life but without the orientation to self-destruction. In your time, 1853, this entity was contacted in sleep by a fourth density being. This being was concerned with the battles between the forces of light and the forces of darkness which have been waged in fourth density for many of your years. This entity accepted the honored duty of completing the one known as Abraham's karmic patterns, and the one known as Abraham discovered that this entity would attempt those things which the one known as Abraham desired to do but felt it could not.
In prison?
Yeah, in prison. 4 times.
4 times?
Yeah.
For possession?
For various things, different things and shit. You know, they always, you know, sometimes the cops, they set your ass up on some sales shit, you know. They do some shit, you know, be like, man, I didn't do that shit, man. Because they can't catch you, they gonna catch you. They had a cop tell me this one time. He ran up on me, boom, I smashed the pipe I had, and, you know, he didn't see when he see no drugs or nothing. He said, "You still going to jail, man. No matter what you do, you going to jail. I don't care. I'm just gonna."
Thus the exchange was made. The entity, Abraham, was taken to a plane of suspension until the cessation of its physical vehicle, much as though we have rather arranged with this instrument to remain in the vehicle, come out of the trance state, and function as this instrument, leaving this instrument's mind and spirit complex in its suspended state. The planetary energies at this time were at what seemed to this entity to be at a critical point, for that which you know as freedom had gained an acceptance as a possibility among many peoples. This entity saw the work done by those beginning the democratic concept of freedom, as you call it, in danger of being abridged or abrogated by the rising belief and use of the principle of the enslavement of entities.
And they live in their way. Now here's the interesting thing, because all these living beings, they live. And then they realize that their life is truly not that long, unless they devour one of the other life forms.
This is a negative concept of a fairly serious nature in your density. This entity, therefore, went forward into what it saw as the battle for the light, the healing of the rupture in the concept of freedom. This entity did not gain or lose karma by these activities due to its detachment from any outcome. Its attitude throughout was one of service to others, more especially to the downtrodden or enslaved.
So they're set up.
Yeah, I mean, it's a setup, man. It's fucked up shit. By wanting to be what they call true to the game, you know, it's you have to be true all the way around. You can't just be true to what you want. You know, you can't just be true to just helping you and yours. You know, if you're gonna be true to the game, you gotta really be in the game, because the game is gonna come back and bite you in the ass one way or the other. Because in everything you do, you gotta do it the right way. You know, if you're a bank robber, there's only one way to rob a motherfucker. It ain't trying to pick up all the dollars. You grabbing what you know you're gonna go in there and get. You're not trying to do some stupid ass shit. You know?
Manipulated emotions. So we have that subtle kind of energy now happening the same way, the illusion of racial differences and the maintenance of that distance between one form of life form human energies and the other, to say you're different. Yeah, we're different, but the mode has been, just like every other thing, second and third generational, the mode has been manipulated.
The polarity of the individual was somewhat, but not severely, lessened by the cumulative feelings and thought forms which were created due to large numbers of entities leaving the physical plane due to trauma of battle. May we ask if this is the information you requested, or if we may supply any further information? Question 35.9. Questioner, I would ask any further questions during the next working period, which should occur in about 4 days. We do not want to overtire the instrument. I will only ask if there is anything that we can do to make the instrument more comfortable or to improve the contact. Answer, I am Ra. All is well. I leave you, my friends, in the love and the light of the one infinite creator. Go forth, therefore rejoicing in the power and the peace of the one creator. Adonai.
You know, and you're not gonna take a broad that makes $5,000 a night versus one that makes $50 a night. You know, walking the damn streets because you like the way she looks better than when you like this one. That's not gonna work. It's not the right way to do that. You know, so you gotta, you know, take that shit and balance it out. You gotta be balanced the right way, man.
What age were you when you started selling for the first time?
Shit, I was probably, you know, when I was younger, I was about 7 or 8, and I didn't know exactly what I was doing and shit. But I'm running this shit up and down the damn street, man. You know, and I know what the fuck I was doing, because give a kid $20, that's a lot of now laters, man. And they sold a big pack of now laters in, you know. It's now and laters. Now laters, they call them now, but sometimes black people say now laters, you know. It's just we forget about the now and the later, but it's.
The mold has been, what better way to manipulate us than to create offshoots of ourselves that we could hate? So that you can maintain the game of this versus that, you versus me. And in doing that, I would constantly be puppet mastering everybody. If I could feed from you and your pain, I would puppet master you to believe in the Matrix, and that's what the Matrix is.
And that was 1994 when we went down. Now going back again, when you're a young kid and you're making $1,000 a day, you know, and $10,000 becomes nothing to you, you want more than that, you know, a week. You get a lot of false sense of power.
The candy is called now and laters, you know, so we say now laters. Sound like now laters, yeah. But that was a lot of money to a kid, you know. You a kid, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, and somebody hand you $20, man, you know how much candy you can buy, man. Buy a whole lot of candy, dude. You do a whole lot of everything, man.
And your ego grows, and you make a lot of bad decisions. You know, you don't have to be bad to make bad decisions. Good people make bad decisions too, but a lot of the decisions we made, if not all, were bad. I say if not all because bad people do good things too, you know?
The Matrix feeds on your energy so that second generational entities who set up the Matrix for their life can feed and become substantial entities. Remember, they're creating a substantial, tangible life on frames of reference that are beyond your reality. You see? Mm-hmm.
Yes.
I used to love having my little candy store, you know, because I got all people coming to me and stuff, you know, and doing this and doing that, you know, always being in my mind, you know, and that was a pretty cool feeling, you know, pretty cool sensation and all, man. But running numbers, doing, you know, little bookies and all that type of stuff, man, you know, I didn't know I was giving pills to them nurse ladies and stuff like that. I didn't know that. I just thought I was just handing Auntie Cookie a bag. You
exactly what they showed when Neo was born, and the robots, but they would consider a secondary creation because it was created out of the minds of man, somewhat, so to speak, was feeding off of the babies and liquidating them.
Exactly. They were using their light. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yes. That's the principle. Mm-hmm. The principle.
Also with genetically modified foods and genetically modified drugs, they're also able to have you know, let's say that you ate a cheeseburger and you got high. That light that you're going to be emanating is going to be contrary to the light you have something naturally, and they'll be able to feel that.
That's right.
Because it's going to be fear-based high. It's going to be so distorted. You know what I'm saying? It's just perfect.
Everybody, Auntie Cookie, Auntie Sandra, Auntie somebody and shit, you know, it's just Auntie Fifi, Auntie whoever the hell it is, or Uncle motherfucking Uncle, you know, that's what that is, man. And I didn't know that's what I was doing, you know, but it was cool little change, you know, because, you know, you have to do something, you know, when you want some new shoes, you gotta do something when you want new everything, you know, you refuse to lose. You refuse to be held down by what's holding you down, you know.
So I have saved lives. I've kept people from being killed, but I'm also responsible for ordering a lot of violence. So at this point in my life, I'm like, I walk heavy because some things you can't wash away, some things you can't just roll off your back, and some things you can't just dismiss, you know?
Your lower energy, they have to feed on lower energy vibrations. They can't feed on higher oscillating waveform energies because it would destroy them.
By what we see, because a little kid don't know nothing. But
when you were young, at that age, what options did you see for yourself in life? Did you see like selling drugs was one option? Stealing stuff was another. Did you have like college or did you see like friends of yours going out?
No, that shit is the furthest thing from your mind. To be honest with you, man, when a motherfucker say some shit like that, I'm gonna go to college. I'm not saying that a kid is dumb, because children are very incredible. They have
the environment they're raised in dictates a lot of what their future holds.
I know, because see, and I ponder on this, and I always consider how I choose to select the right choice of words when I'm talking to young people. Because I know when I was younger, when Reagan became president, and he got shot that time, the principal would ask me, so what do you think about our president being shot? And I said, that motherfucker got what he deserved. But that's only because I heard grown-ups say that.
So they must feed on the lower forms of energy, and thus those attenuated energies becomes their food supply. When we begin to take a definite inventory of which thought processes creates those conditions, and then do our best to recognize them when they are being instigated, we will find ourselves not growing old. We'll find ourselves now bringing peace to the planet. The weather patterns on the planet will change immediately based upon just the change of the mindset that these second generational entities are creating by them manipulating the first generational beings beyond their perceptual realm of understanding.
And so I'm carrying with a lot of regret, not only with the drug dealing, because it gets deeper than that, as I said, but with the murder, no way you go, no amount of drinks that you drink could get you to ever not have been a murderer if you already murdered. You get that?
Okay, brother.
I wanted you to build a little bit more on the micromagnetic mind.
Micromagnetic mind.
Subatomic particles and how they play that manipulation.
Well, the micromagnetic mind envelope is essentially another quantum reflection of the original monad. Anytime you see magnetism, it's a consolidating force. It's to bring together whatever components that original monad had as its intent.
Because I ain't know no damn Reagan from whoever the hell he was and shit. You get where I'm coming from? Politics didn't mean nothing to me. I'm a kid. I'm 11, 12 years old. So, yeah, you know what I mean? I don't know nothing about that. But I'm like, yeah, he got what he deserved. A white cracker and all this. I don't know no damn better. Because a child is not born prejudiced. A child is taught to be prejudiced. You cannot grow coming out of the womb and you nigger. You can't.
You learn that.
Yeah, that's all it is, man. So.
And so when that begins to happen, you get solar systems. You see, and within its own vibratory microverse, you'll get planets, and then from planets you'll get orbiting spirals of energies that will come down to the atomic level and subatomic level, and the subatomic levels from quarks to gluons and particles and all of these, and each thing diminuates according to what it wishes to negate from. So the microverse is a negation of the macroverse, which is essentially a negation from the one all. So as creation begins to go deeper into itself, it becomes more and more negated in its microversal frame of references. You see, so the microverse is essentially just reflecting the intent of the microverse, or actually specializing the intent of the macroverse, which was the original generalization of the intent from the original all.
That's all that is, man. In 5 years, only Soul Brothers Airlines. For real though, man. When I did sell a lot of drugs, I invested in a lot of houses and different things like this. But I didn't know this cat was followed by the feds. So I'm like giving him all my money and stuff, giving him money like, oh, cool, because I do a little painting, a little drywall, a little this, a little bit of that. I can. You got a hole in the wall or house needs a couple walls, I can put them in no time flat, But doing all that broker stuff and everything like that, I didn't know anything about that at the time.
The original generalization now becomes specified in the various ways that the microverses that offshoots or sprout from the macroverse represent themselves within the total all, or the multitudinous dimensions within the envelope that is called the Merkaba, or the holographic envelope. That's that envelope we're speaking about. It's a hologram, essentially, that is like how the second generational mind of the first macroverse, which contains the original programming, would then project its own reference or its own perception of what it is. Because remember, when that one thing becomes consolidated, it is seeking itself. It is seeking a sense of itself, even though it's like forever big. It is seeking a sense of itself, and in seeking that sense of itself, it projects just like the original did, and into all these microverses. See, we don't even know if the all itself is nothing more than a monad of another all that we can never perceive.
So you can't wash that away. You change somebody's life, you change somebody's family's lives, somebody's kids' lives if they had kids. And there's no at a time when you mature and you grow, there's nothing that you could do to express remorse for that. You could say sorry, and I've apologized to the mother, at least of one of my victims, but you cannot get it out of your head, man, no matter what you do. So I feel that shit growing inside of me sometimes and weighing me down.
Get the whole being to the sleeping giant.
Yeah, they say don't awaken it, right? They say don't awaken the sleeping giant. Yeah.
Now, I didn't get the book. Would it be possible for you to explain Grand Unified Theorem?
Yeah, I'll try to do it based upon his perception, but my perception is something that's like his, but I don't have the mathematical frame of reference or even the acumen. Never left the garden, which is why the feminine principle contains the point of reference for intent to bring itself back into alignment with the creator. But when you get the feminine housing or the outer form to go haywire and to become focused into the lower forms of energy instead of the higher forms of energy, you create chaos here on matter. And then spirit sends the energy wave forms to destroy whatever blocks of ignorance or whatever static forms of energy that would impede matter's development towards spirit.
Because I want to do better. I want to be looked at as a better person, but there's always that. Especially nowadays when somebody meets you and they just Google you as they walk away, and then boom, you may never see them again. That may be the person that was going to change your life. It could be an employer, it could be a business partner, it could be a lover, whatever it is. But it's a lot to carry. And what do you do when it's up to you? And then you're the one that made those decisions, The people on the outside, they look at me or people like me, because there's not many people like me around. People from that era have died, or they're in prison, or were killed, or severely strung out on drugs, But a lot of us are not alive no more.
outer properties of the vehicle that carry the energies within those two things until they don't have any form that looks the same anymore. It begins to bubble and go through all kind of changes, and then it becomes whatever the intent of the two coming together consolidated to be. So the 90% will constantly instigate the 10% by its sheer voluminous presence. And if you obey and tithe, then that 90% becomes the 89%, which then causes a sequence of events, which is the 8. Remember I told you that Solomon, which is the soul of man, which is the life form, is the number that of the elevated man is the number 8, 4 plus 4. The higher man, which is the 4 foundation, the higher man is the 4 plus the 4, which is the 8. So when you have that 10, the 10% now becomes added on, and there's an 11 now, which is the number that is the power number for this time.
You know, and I'm just saying, okay, this guy got his office, got a good setup. It was just a setup, you know. And but luckily I wasn't tied to it, you know, because I miss my 4,000 square foot house, you know, that I had, you know, and the motherfuckers came and took it from me and shit. I miss that motherfucker like a motherfucker, you know. Family, man. Spread it all over the world, man.
How many kids?
7.
7 kids?
Yeah. I say 2 of them, I don't know, but you know, but then they hold them up to me, so I can't say nothing else.
Why do you think 11 became the power number for now? Because that 10% now is gravitating to a higher vibration. The 1 is being added to the 1. Now that 2 becomes also doubt. It becomes confusion. It becomes contentiousness if it is not creating, if there is no creation of balance within that particular spectrum.
Or here to tell the story. In general, people look at me and they just think about that, YTC, but there's much more to that. There's much more to that than just that. Sometimes when you look at people for who they were and you don't give them credit for who they're trying to become, who they're trying to be, then all they're going to give back is that, which you know them to be, you know? So it's better always to welcome people into the stages of life that they're trying to conquer and introduce themselves into. I don't want to be known as a drug dealer. I'm not a drug dealer. I don't want to be known as a killer, but I'm responsible for death. So what I want to be known for now is for my writing or for my projects, for my content, and that's what I'm looking forward to.
These two, the 1 and the 1, which is the 2, which is the doubt, which is the first number in the beginning of all numbers, when those two come together, they act as polar balances to the energy that is accumulated from the 10% interacting with the 90%, which is the Melchizedek human perception range. So when you don't do it, you will be forced to do it, either by you coming to grips with your karma, you dying out, you becoming sick and you're suffering from diseases. This is you not consolidating your higher mind to do better with the atomic structure within you to create that 10% at its most pristine level to be able to interface with that 90% and get the best that 90% has to offer.
Whether I'll finally accomplish it, I don't know, but that's what I'm trying to do, and that's what I'm going to stick to. Steadfastly, you know. I'm not going to detour from that because for the first time in my life, I smile when I think about coming on the Soulful Underbelly show, you know? That excites me. Before, it might be, I'm about to go over here and make a move. Now, you know, in other words, I don't live for Friday nights no more. I live for Saturday mornings, you know? And it's a whole better way of thinking and seeing. I know now Irish people, Jewish people, mostly white people that I didn't know before. And in my hood, when you coming up, they teach you to hate the white man. It's the white man's fault that you here and there. And there's plenty of history that could certify that as true. But it ain't every white man that's your enemy. It ain't every white man that's a cop, and every cop ain't bad, and every white man ain't out to get you. Simple as that. And I've persevered by just continuing, and that's what everybody else could do. And
You see, the second part of the question?
The second part is the coming of Melchizedek in conjunction or similar to the Mayan or Olmec prophecy of 2012.
Yes, it is. It's in conjunction with the 2012 because 5 is the number of man. And again, we're dealing with the Julian calendar, so we can't say that we're not already in it. You see? So the 2012 calendar is actually something that these devils did. They saw the point of reference to what it is that would get them to that point, and they counted the units in terms of cosmic units to what they see as years. How many times would the planet have to go around our sun, our computer light emanator, which is the sun? How many times would this orb, this ship, have to spiral around this for us to come to a junction in consciousness that would bring us to the point of interface with Eta Carina, or what we call Melchizedek?
While I was selling that shit, I didn't have it for her at the time because I didn't know in my mind that I'm supposed to keep it for her, to keep her around me and shit. You know, I'm thinking just I'm keeping her around because I'm me, you know. And so one day she needed that shit, and I'm like, it was nowhere to be found. And I was money, so like, here, she said, she threw it back. She said, that shit's not gonna help me right now. I'm like, what the fuck wrong with you, bitch?
So she was coming to see you, and you ended up not having what she needed.
Right, because I don't know I'm supposed to keep that shit all the damn time. I don't know that. I don't know that. Okay, she's about to run out and shit, you know, and so I better go and order some more shit or whatever, you know. I don't care if I don't have it for 2 days. It's not my problem and shit, you know.
So they counted backwards from that point, and it became 2012 years, or 2012 cycles. That the whole system would come into conjunction with an alignment. And in order for Eta Carina to be actually polarized for us, the planets that spiral around us, which are tonal gods, which are tonal entities that are keeping a frequency sound wave in place. See, the way the sun is, the way Mercury and then Venus and then Earth, right? Third rock from the sun. The way we are set up is that those planets that are around us, as they're all spiraling in different places upon different vectors and spinning at their own rates, create a sound tonal quality that aligns our consciousness matrix to the greater galaxies around us. We, though, under great cataclysmic stress due to a war, are wobbling.
Some people have come to, how can I say this? Come to find Neverland, but they never land. Just keep saying hi.
So our reference points now have become distorted. We can't pick up consciousness vectors from other star systems as clearly as we should be. So we have to be even more in tune with the planetary waves and to adjust our consciousness to everything that we see happening around us, because now because the planet is out of whack, those entities that I was telling you about would have a field day here.
any situation that's been thrown at me, I've tried to overcome it. Prison, multiple times people have tried to kill me. Poverty when I was a child. When I was released, I only had a place to live for 32 days before the woman that I was with kicked me out of her house. And that's a shock for a guy on life parole and who is me, because I'm not a regular dude, and I claim my own, or I demand my own respect, right? So for you to get kicked out of where you're living at on life parole, it's not about getting kicked out. You're on life parole. That means you could get violated and get sent back to state prison.
Because this would be a perfect point to create the illusion using the lower frequencies, which are based upon all the havoc that's going on the planet, to create a condition that would keep us from actually taking the time to interface with those higher energy frequencies. Now, I know it sounds like, what the hell is he talking about? But you keep looking at this, you will see what I'm saying. So now from when these planets begin to spin, after they get to a certain point by the year 2012, there will be an alignment to Eta Carina. Not only to Eta Carina, but to some serious other energies that can oppose that. Which is why that's what they call the end of time. Which time? The time that it took for us to get to that point. And the beginning of a brand new cycle of consciousness that will open a door or a gateway to a reality where thought now can be amplified simply by you teaching the children the way you teach to ride a bike. You could teach them to do thought and thinking, to project thoughts, to project images, to project messages, to project voices, to be able to change the molecular variables, the atomic spin orientations of the atom itself. The electron can be controlled because all of it is thought-based.
Depending on what move you make after being kicked out. I violated my parole that day because I had to go somewhere, so I headed back to my old neighborhood, and that's where I got on my feet. But for me, for a guy that was raised as a homeless kid, was in the shelter system, who got into the wrong things, who then went to prison.
You were born where?
Huh?
You were born where? In Puerto Rico?
I was born in Puerto Rico.
Thought creates atoms. By the very issuance of thoughts do you now create atomic energy. So when you get into that space now, that paradigm space that has been prepared for us, I just say, I have prepared a table for you. All of that in the Bible is them telling us, all of those who time travel back to tell those who didn't know where they were going. That's what we are. We are time travelers. We have made a trip back. You remember that show that comes on TBS, I think, called 7 Days, where they call Operation Backstep? Well, this is what we've been on. We're here to tell them what's getting ready to come. The Mayans were backsteppers. They were time travelers. They're supposed to set up structures on different planets where humanities are actually evolving, set up the structures for them to then decode as they raise their consciousness. They couldn't decode it, and the white man couldn't decode the shit the way they put it down there because he was a fucking ignorant knuckle-dragging ape, just killing everything in sight. Just like any of them, see them little white kids, attention deficit white kids going crazy in a goddamn playroom or in the supermarket.
And I was raised in New York City, but it was tumultuous because of the homelessness and lack of opportunity. So for me to be on parole for life, I think it's a miracle that I was released, to tell you the truth, you know.
Atonement of consciousness from the central core point of reference, or the point of entry, where the higher forms of light entered into the lower realms of matter. It sets up this canopy of light that adjusts itself to the consciousness intent or the dictates of that central point as it entered. Okay? That would be the monad entrance point that would then, just like, for instance, I take a seed and I put it into a garden. That seed grows a particular plant or flower that shoots off or spouts a particular type of seed that begins to plant itself, and before you know it, these different entities or different variations on this one theme are coming up all around this same soil based upon them one or two seeds that I planted.
Legally, that you could do to get out of that if they decide to keep you for that time. But I still continued. I did everything I could do inside, and I got into helping other people. I started working with the blind, and that was my favorite thing to do, because I knew I'm helping somebody. And I had a great guy. His name was Halit Arach. He's from Turkey. A real gangster. Prison. People think prisons are filled with gangsters, but they're not. There's only a few. And he's one of them.
Same thing with the planting of a seed consciousness into an envelope or a quality of matter, whereby that seed begins to proliferate, and before you know it, all this whole canopy of different lights that's exploding, and what you're watching is this external combustion of orgasms, and essentially orgasm is the point of reference where spirit comes into matter, or you interlink spirit and matter together, and you get that feeling.
But he was also a gentleman, and he taught me a lot. He was blind. He was from Turkey. He had the biggest drug sale in New York City history. And he had the same judge I had, and the same task force that arrested my crew arrested him. His sale was for 100 kilos of heroin. I think in Trump Plaza, at that. But I learned from him. I've been with the worst people you could think about in the worst places, and I've learned from all of them.
That the Most High must have felt at the point of its birth, and so forth. So you now participate in that, and when all of the billions of different galaxies begin to align their own reality, so that now entities like us can now find a place within whatever that construct is. Say our Milky Way has a particular programming for souls. So you would be called to the Milky Way to manifest or to implement the intent of that particular spirit monad within you.
From the Happy Land Killer, I've learned from David Berkowitz. What you learn from David Berkowitz, I learned different scriptures of the Bible that he shared with me. And that's what he shares. So that's what I got from him. And I've learned from different people, man. I've been in prison with FBI agents, with cops, with judges, with different people. And there's something to learn from all of them.
So you have to deal with whatever it is that the structured frequencies and sounds and harmonics of this particular playing field would be, as opposed to going to Alpha Draconis or to the SETI star system, Sirius, Orion. Each one of them has a star programming that allows for the alignment of consciousness of individuals, and by way of how certain masses spin and create tonal frequencies around them.
And a lot of them have changed their perspective once they see what they were praying about is not really what it's all sold to be, as far as prison and rehabilitation and all that shit, because that's a joke. At least in New York State, it is. There's no rehabilitation. That shit is just a big place for you to either get worse or get better on your own. In order for you to get better on your own, you gotta want that. And then you'll seek it out on yourself. Similar to slaves back in the days that wanted to learn how to read and stole books from their masters, you know? When you want to do something, you're going to do it, and nobody's going to stop you from doing it.
So our consciousness is based upon the fact that Uranus is spinning on this direction. Saturn is spinning in certain directions, different degrees. Just like you say, a Mason deals with degrees. If you're dealing with 23 degrees, you're dealing with 23 degrees of consciousness, then you can just imagine what the other degrees of the 10 are.
And that's been sort of my life, trying to figure out how to do things on my own. My father never was around, still ain't around. I know him, he knows me, he knows my brother, obviously, but he's just decided to never do nothing for us.
Tell me about your family, how you grew up.
I grew up with my mom, my brother, my sister. My mom was very shy. She's, she don't drink, she don't get high. She's always at home. She got lied to by the same guy, which was my father. And that's how my brother and I went to see. But he never has. I've never had a birthday party, even when I had money. But I never had a birthday party as a child or Christmas, none of that shit. There was none of that.
The 10 planets that we know are in our solar system, each one of them spinning at a different rate, at a different distance, so that the rate and the frequency it gives off creates a quality when it interfaces with the next planet's energies. And then you have this, what they call music of the spheres. As the notes and the tones begin to intermingle, they create harmonics off of one another. And these tonal qualities are, of course, subsonic, and they influence us on the subcellular and atomic level.
I only asked from my father one thing one time. It was for boxing gloves, and I'm still waiting for these shits. And he's always been employed. He has the same job today that he's always had. And his other kids, they all gainfully employed and have college education. My brother and I don't. My brother and I have had to survive. However, we figured it out. That's it.
Well, I get a few people out on the street who have seriously, most of the questions are real simple, but there's one brother in Philly, with a Chuck chain.
For what creation would be at its ultimate expression, from its core expression. You see, and then to try to minimize that, pi is essentially an exercise of a limited mind trying to understand the unlimited.
However we figured it out, that's how we had to go about it, but we became experts at that. And he's good and I'm good.
Tell me about your sister.
My sister was my original role model. And she taught me how to count. She was pretty, fly, got guys whistling at her. I'm turning around, sticking the middle finger up at them. That's the kind of relationship we had. One time, me and my brother jumped up because she was scolding me or him. And we were like 8 and 9 years old. We just jumped on her. It's a crazy memory, but I don't have many with her.
Okay, and our ancestors knew that it was futile, so they left the door open in the mathematics in order for us to calculate the fact. Remember, all mathematics is a form of understanding consciousness. Now the grand master mason is man. Man is the master mason because look around you. You know, ants are incredible masons. Bees are incredible masons. The tailor birds are incredible masons. Understand that a flower, the seed of a flower or a tree that creates a flower is a mason. So the ultimate mason is man, and the ultimate mason that we imitate is the ultimate architect that you saw in the Matrix. And
you know, I've dragged her out of crack houses, took her back to my mom's house, showered her, go downstairs to get her some food. By the time I come upstairs, she's either gone or asleep in the bathtub, because that's the first time maybe in the last week that she got a break away from crack. Those few minutes while I left her in the shower, and boom, she fall asleep right in there.
And that represented the ultimate architect, which is the ultimate mason. So pi essentially is a way for us to try to understand the language of the architect of the universe, which is really not really understanding it. It's just putting 4 over 7 or 22 or 11. Again, we talk about the double 11s over the 7, which is the number of completion.
Also, a lot of people are new to the black business, and they notice a change in themselves and how people perceive them. And they're wondering how could they modify that light disseminating out so that they don't get too much. Because for instance, they'll come back, all people in my job asking what's going on with me, what's happening with me. My family's wondering what's happening. And they want
to recognize that energy coming forward. In that stillness, the energy will identify itself. In that identification now, you do not try to own it or control it, but to ask it, invoke of it. What is it about my coming into an understanding and perceiving of the thing that I have described or has described itself? What am I to now do with that recognition?
I got stuck between the two for a long time. And by the time I figured out to be Martin with her, it was too late because now she was dying. She had AIDS and in the hospital.
Because to recognize the thing at its essential level is to recognize something within ourselves. And what have you recognized then? You can't recognize it by going around trying to overtly name it. You have to recognize it by becoming still.
But in a way, I destroyed my own household in doing so. And then went to prison and destroyed myself halfway through that by trying to survive in there. And now this is the first time I'm out here trying to live, bro.
How has it communicated to your thoughts? Has all of your old thoughts about your perceiving and controlling things entered into the experience so that now you got old past experiences saturating and confusing a new experience?
And trying to do things. Sometimes with no support, but I'm still going. And when I die, I'm gonna die trying. It ain't gonna be that I'm gonna die doing the wrong thing.
You lost your sister. How old was she?
23.
You see. So the need to understand and control something immediately is fear. That's you seeing something that you don't understand, so you wish to conquer it, own it, so that you will not fear it.
And at what point we even? I keep asking. I ask the universe that. At what point we even? I've done different things. I've helped to exonerate people that were serving life sentences. I've helped to exonerate people who were wrongfully convicted for rapes and other crimes. I've helped people with many different legal things, other exonerations, you know. But I do those things to try to even out with all the shit I know I've done.
And it is fear that motivates most of us right now. This whole time before the great cleansing is about fear. It's about getting rid of the fear factor within us so that you will understand that even if you get caught a bullet in the head, or you jump off the street and get hit by a truck and you're dead, it is not the ending.
And there's always the question of money. I've never received one penny from anybody from helping people. And I've helped people who have received 8 million and 10 million and 41 million. It really ain't, I'm not destroyed by nobody really paying me because I didn't make a deal with nobody to pay me. I feel good helping people in that way because initially when I was a kid, I wanted to be a lawyer. And that's how I got along so well with Lynn Stewart. I used to go sit with her and do tutorials, and she would teach me about law. I would go with her to her criminal cases and arraignments to learn how she does things in the courtroom.
Some of us will lament because we've trained we've trained our atoms and our molecules to miss somebody that we've grown accustomed to, somebody who we've interfaced with, exchanged energies with. That then becomes a point of addiction. It's a comfort for the physical flesh, a place of security, something that my mind can go to and feel at rest with. We miss that feeling.
And it was my sister because I would visit her in the hospital. I'm wiping blood off of her and I'm cleaning her up and I'm seeing her disappear, you know, deteriorate. And sometimes she's in a coma and sometimes she's not. Sometimes she recognizes us, sometimes she doesn't. But I know what led her there. My mother, she knows it's drugs, but she doesn't know she doesn't know the kind, and she doesn't know that it's this crack thing, and she doesn't know that I'm a crack dealer.
But it is an illusion. It is you participating in the illusion that the four elements give to your senses as a form of reality. In reality, the part that is listening to me is the only reality. The part that does not die, the part that does not suffer, the part that endures beyond the flesh.
But it was a struggle trying to figure out who to be until I decided, man, I'm not doing this shit no more. So I sold my stakes and I moved, but it was too late. I got a job at Columbia University as a doorman. And while I figured out what to do with the money I had, as far as cleaning it, opening a business, you know, I had a couple cars, a couple motorcycles. I didn't really need any toys. I had a bunch of jewelry. I had 2 places where I was living. What I needed was to establish myself legitimately. So I started the job. It only lasted a month though.
The part that carries the karma to the next phase. Whether the idea is to disengage yourself from certain harmonics, and in disengaging yourself from those harmonics, from those energies, do you cleanse the soul of having to come back or creating a gravity point for you to come back into the flesh?
And it was temporary until they figure out they want to keep me. And the second day that I was on Rikers Island, they called my girl with a permanent position, saying that the tenants liked me and they wanted me to be in the building. But it was too late. We already had a 95 count indictment against us. And little did I know that on that day I was going to be kidnapped by the NYPD.
You purge yourself of fear, and the signatures and all of the templates that you've put onto your soul that create the conditions for you to come back again. So fear not the wonderful energies that you all are now participating in. This is a wondrous time. I mean, 30 years ago, I was talking to myself.
And that's how that went. We had sealed secret indictments, and I was one of the first that they picked up. Prior to that, there were multiple shootings in retaliation for the attempted murder of myself and Tito, in which a cop was also shot.
Now you all can actually talk to each other. This is beautiful. This is a wonderful time for young people to come together, because now a whole new door of awareness is opened up. And it's gonna end up one day permeating the music. Soon. It's gonna permeate the classroom. You see, it's gonna permeate a time when y'all be throwing down, dancing and getting crazy, and all of a sudden stop. Conscious moment.
So things were heating up that summer of 94. I really didn't expect to make it, but my mentality at the time was, I'm gonna give it as hard as I could give it, because I know chances are I ain't gonna make it past this year. There was a lot of gun smoke on Columbus Avenue and Amsterdam Avenue, and some of it was on us and some of it was on others. I don't have any bullet holes in me, thank God, because I've always seen it coming.
They kicked the shit out of these Americans, and they had all these state-of-the-art weapons. Couldn't do shit. Because all is mind, and once you got a mind that is made up and has the resolve, the universe will follow it. The intent will manifest itself above and beyond all obstacles. They say nothing can beat an idea whose time has come.
At 94, I had been to 17 funerals, so nobody was older than 20.
Remember, this idea that we got about raising ourselves out of this paradigm, shifting out of the bullshit, remember I told you, shift happens, right? That is going to be automatic. So fear not needing to have to protect yourself from him. If you find yourself coming into conjunction with him, then know that that was something that you orchestrated. This is something that you wanted to do to test yourself. If you're on the higher plane, just go with it because you're protected by it anyway. If you participated in something and you created the conditions, then go with it to see what it is that you wanted to learn from the situation.
Hey, bro. I swore differently for a long time, but crime don't pay, man. So you under stress every day, right? What are the things that I enjoyed? I have an addictive personality, right? So I am, or maybe I'm taking a break right now, addicted to sex, addicted to drinking when I was released. I have an addictive personality, right?
Did you ever do crack?
No, I've never done no hard drug. So I've never tasted any, not even once. So you have an addictive personality, what happens? You gotta be careful. I learned that now. But back then, basically, when you strip everything away, what most drug dealers are living for is to feed their own insatiable desires.
If you find yourself in a gun battle, be the best warrior. Die the way you do when you are fighting for a real cause. Don't be doing it half-heartedly or half-heartedly. Go after whatever it is you go after it. Go after it with a rabid resolve.
I don't care if it's you gotta have 5 cars and all of them have to have the best rims, or you have to have every Rolex, you have to have whatever it is. Me, I'm after women. Right? I don't even know who's listening at this point. So that was my trouble always. Women, right? But I didn't look at it like what it is, addictive personality. So you basically living to feed your dick sometimes.
And then either do or don't do. You can't be in the middle vacillating and none of that shit, because that's just where these beasts want you to be, and they'll feed off of your inconsistencies and your lack of attention, your lack of resolve. All of that feeds the lower energies.
You know that? And or your ego or your rep. You don't need to. Who needs 4 BMWs? I never use my cars to go any place further than New York City.
Because they don't have a point of reference, and you don't have a point of reference. So all your energy becomes ambient energy. It's not focused like a laser. And they'll just feed off of it.
I lived up the block or in Yonkers when I got a condo in Yonkers. I didn't need all that. It's about me, one. It becomes a thing where you just as sick as the drug addict. You just seeking a different thing, you know?
All right, so fear not. Don't fear anything or anyone. And if you come into conjunction with anything that you feel could cause you to raise your fear, anything short of anybody shooting at you, that's the difference. So I'm talking about coming into situations where you feel that you have no power, or you're being orchestrated to feel you don't have any power. Just become still.
You know? And for any drug dealers like that, you tell a drug dealer that needs a re-up, that you don't have the kilogram that he needs to put in his spot, he's going to be sick. He's going to go through it. He's going to have emotions, all kind of problems.
Read the script as you go along with it, and 9 times out of 10, you'll come right out of it. It is your calm resolve that gets you out of it.
It's an addictive lifestyle. So I never was happy then. It just looked that way. It looked that way to the people that thought that motorcycles, cars, women, jewelry, and money define happiness. Yes, I'm happier now. Sometimes I'm just another dude that's asking, how much is that hero?
See, when they do, the warrior doesn't do. Tai Chi. Mental, psychological, spiritual Tai Chi.
First, you usually see the construction. I used to see the construction workers where I was working at. You know, they got to price everything because it's expensive or whatever they're making is not enough. So, and that's just to stay in my head like, wow, You gotta, it's bread and turkey, lettuce and tomato. But now, a lot of times I've had to do that in my life.
All right.
I want to switch the subject matter.
The planet sometimes consolidates an energy that is based upon collective, and then it consolidates into an energy vortex that deals with the individual. We are in a time when we're vacillating between the two. Essentially, we are now in the individual time.
There's people that are hurt. The whole community was destroyed for years. You got kids that were born from that time that other people consider crack babies because they were raised without a mother and a father and with a cell phone.
Okay? But now we are slowly, like the tides coming in at high and low, we're now at that midpoint where the individual is seeking itself in the collective, and the collective is seeking itself in the individual.
And I don't have enough to buy a junkie monk. That's a lesson for me in prison, bro. In a maximum security prison. Now she's being searched to come see her son after riding a bus for 8 hours, to sit on a visiting floor for 8 hours, to then get back on the same bus for 8 hours. It's not worth it.
There's a point now where the true walkers, the true light walkers and light workers are seeing now within the energies, are maximizing the potential to learn what it is to be in both. We are now an individual culture here in the West energy. They say that the East is where you are born and the West is where you die. You follow the path of the sun. If that's the case, they say you are born by yourself, and then as you grow, you get to know everyone. That's when the sun is at 12 o'clock. That's when everybody sees the sun.
With their loved one on the pavement, maybe his brains is all over the place, and you walk away. But that family has to deal with that forever, bro.
So that sun now, which starts in the East as a birth and a baby, grows to its adulthood, and then descends. They say you die. When you die alone. Check. Well, then if the influence of consciousness is in the West, then the individuality of that death cycle, or the perception of death as being alone, would have permeated into the consciousness cycle of those who are alive today.
But the day you walk away from it, you leave countless people with a literal mess to deal with their loved one on the pavement. Maybe his brains is all over the place. Everything else while they're in prison that were working for us. They made their own money. They could have done it for themselves, but we had a crew that we felt like we got to take care of. So we've done good and we've done bad. But we did a lot of bad that you can't sanitize.
So therefore, we have in the West an individual consciousness based upon a permeation of that dying energy going into the West. Because essentially the earth today and civilization today is in its death throes, this particular consciousness realm. That's why these bastards like Dronvello Melchizedek is talking about a new rising humanity. I said, well, if that's the case, then where's the new rising humanity coming from when every fucking thing is dying?
Unfortunately.
Do you think your time in prison might have saved your life?
What do you mean? Do you mean like if I would have never got arrested, would I have been dead?
Yeah.
For sure. For sure. I've had a conversation with my brother, shout out to him, and it was about what I want him to make sure I'm wearing at the funeral.
You see, there is a dying of humanity. And for them to say that we have to have a 12-span, DNA and all that shit, if, and it gets to me now, if the next stage is not in the flesh, or at least in a different flesh, how the fuck are we worried about whether or not the DNA is going to consolidate and come together and become a 12-span and all that bullshit?
And this was 1992. We got arrested in 1994. So in 92, I was getting ready for a funeral. But that's because by then I had already been, by 94, I had been to 17 funerals. So nobody was older than 24. And there was only one guy that was 24. Rest in peace to him.
What the fuck are we gonna look like with a 12-strand DNA? Maybe the 12-strand DNA is finally getting the pieces together to get the fuck out of the body. What would you want to be in a 12-strand DNA? Then you can actually walk in spirit and flesh at the same time. These people are actually distracting us from the shit they're supposed to be. And that is for us to work in the now with where we are. We chose to be in this time where things were individual because we chose the dying time. And like they say, you die by yourself. There's a flame out for humanity at this point. And we're heading into the last stages of this consciousness cycle. Those who are to learn are going to be graduating to the next consciousness cycle. If it's here, then we stay here on the planet all through the turmoil, and then we raise it out of that into a whole new cycle. If this is the toilet, then we are out of this motherfucker. We hang on to the side while it's flushing. We get the fuck out after the tide begins to rise back up again. So...
And Tito got hit right here and in the arm. But what happened more than that is that it's on video, and now this undercover car speeds into the spot. Boop. Sound effects. And they turn around thinking those are Yellow Top members and start shooting at them. They're black and Spanish because they got to fit into the neighborhood, and they're in an undercover car.
Oh, okay. So, I would say that we have a lot to do right here in the now, and that there is no real, the distractions are going to come. They're going to keep us constantly looking at 12 and 13 different things when I, again, goes back to be still and know that I am.
That, may seem like the right thing to do, but you always knows when you're up to the wrong thing. Your stomach will tell you or your heart will tell you. Now you could ignore both of them, but your heart and your stomach will tell you when you're up to no good and when you're about to do something that's no good. So I learned to listen to my stomach and my heart.
And we deal with the now, as opposed to trying to get to a tomorrow, which is already set. We just have to play the part necessary for us to get there. You see, now I know I'm rambling, I'm talking on, but I don't know where you want me to go with this, but I can go on, you know what I'm saying, talking about it. It's just that I want to be more specific for like what the brother was saying.
Now those anecdotes probably sound a bit hillbilly probably, like they come from the hill, but as simple as they are, those things, had I exercised them in my life before, would have helped me a lot more now.
Around, because that's what the central is. That's why they walk around it, because that's essentially the spiraling energy of the one monad, the one atom, that black dark matter that you see represented in the Kaaba. Kabbalah is essentially the study of the dark matter consciousness as it manifests itself through light vectors that's called numbers, and sound vectors that they call words and letters. And of course, the numbers that are attached to the light vectors and the words that are attached become the number letter system of the tetragrammaton, which becomes the four-lettered foundational word of God.
One of the biggest things I've learned is to accept other people. Different people that I've met have helped me, and in my prior life, I wouldn't have listened to anything they say because they have nothing to do with the way I have been brought up. But allowing other voices to come into your head, different ways, different cultures, different people, different languages, helps you in a way to grow into better ways and better things, better people, better circles, better networking,
So yes, there is a foundation in Africa for it. It is the original way that our ancestors actually imparted the information as it was told to them inside of them. And, these white Caucasian Jews who have come there thinking that they had that, they hold on to that very jealously because they know that that's a treasured piece of our history.
And that's what has helped me. It don't matter how big the guy is. It don't matter if this guy's pink, if this guy's homeless, if she's a prostitute. Everybody has something to offer.
The brain that would never develop in a two-dimensional, flat, secondary experiential world like the classroom would not impede that child's ability to see subjects from a three-dimensional point. So interfacing a child early with a three-dimensional world gives the child a chance to use both sides of the brain rather than trying to interpret only through that left side, which is what they want you to do.
We all here doing something. If I look at a prostitute like she's dirty, there's somebody maybe partying Park Avenue looking at me on my clean day considering me dirty. There's always somebody to judge somebody. In prison, the murderers judge the rapist. And then the rapists judge the pedophiles. And it's all downhill, right?
They want the child to overload on the left side so that they do not maintain a contact with that peripheral ability to see into the glass darkly. So that's the first thing you should do with the children or with your students, to interface them with the real, or quote unquote, what we now perceive as the real world, so that the senses within them, the four elements, the fire, air, water, and earth, will develop based upon a one-to-one immediacy of experience.
Right? But one time I was trying to get a transfer to Clean Correctional Facility, right? Probably 1999. And my counselor was Sharon Benson Perry. And, I have a lot of enemies. Everything that's from the streets is documented. It goes with you to prison. So, wherever you have documented enemies, you're not going to that prison. Sometimes it happens with me 3 times. But for the most part, you won't go because you have what's called separations.